Bene, chiudiamo la sessione della mattina.
We can close the morning session.
Dottoressa è una psicoterapeuta della famiglia, presentiamo la dottoressa.
We have, Mrs. Damiani, Dr. Damiani. She will be talking about balancing needs, your child, you, and your emotions. Eleonora Damiani, family psychotherapist. Thank you.
Anche se le domande sono alla fine, io facevo una domanda a voi.
I would like to start with a question, actually, although we usually ask questions in the end. So what's your relationship with rage, sadness? Are all emotions okay? Are better emotions than others? If somebody wants to answer, you tell me.
Comunque, allora intanto, diciamo che in linea generale le emozioni di base sono...
So the basic emotions are joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. What we saw in the movie Inside Out. I don't know if you have seen the movie, but they were described in there. These emotions are very important because the human being, because of its culture, because of its prejudices, tends to give priority to joy because it's nice to be happy, but we cannot choose what we feel. We feel emotions. So as we are hungry or we are thirsty, we feel emotions. This movie is very important because teaches us that joy needs the other emotions to thrive. We cannot do without the other emotions. Generally speaking, it is important, especially for the family of the patient. Children with this kind of disease or children with rare disease in general have difficulties in expressing their emotions or to talk about it because as Dr. Amantis said, it is very important to communicate. When there is a rare disease, there is the possibility that there is a disruption in the communication cycle. As for emotions, if we deny our emotions, if we say, I cannot feel anger, I cannot feel sadness, I cannot feel disgust, we are silencing a part of ourselves. And it's hard to see other people if you don't see yourself. So it becomes difficult to recognize those emotions inside of us. So we need to try and understand what we're feeling. We got to name those emotions. It can be joy, it can be anger, it can be something else. Those are the primary emotions, though, but there are many more. A patient of mine once told me that I asked him, have you ever felt jealousy or anger? And he said, no, I don't feel those emotions. It's impossible. It's impossible because it's the basic line of every human being. So we should give them their name. We should call them by their name, and we need to legitimize them. If my car was damaged, I cannot be happy and walk around sporting a smile. I might be angry in that moment. But the thing is that many people believe that anger means to run or to explode. But actually, you can feel anger and then you communicate to the other. So this is a way to recognize your own existence and the existence of other people, so that there is a border in between me and other people. After legitimizing emotions, it's important to accept them, to say that it's okay to be angry, to be sad, and to communicate those emotions. When it's someone else who feels an emotion, we might think that it's because of us that they feel that emotion, but some other times it's not the case. We need to accept other emotions. It's not something that belongs to to us. It's something that belongs to them. I communicated my emotions. This other person communicated their emotions. And again, we're not the same person. So they can be different and we need to accept that. So I wanted to discuss this wonder parent myth,
Del papà, della mamma supereroe.
which means that the father, the mother are superheroes. They need to do everything. You need to work. You need to take care of your children. And you also need to smile doing that. Whereas I think that it would be important to enhance your own humanity as an opportunity of emotional closeness. I can get closer to another person if I accept my humanity, I give it value. So if I am sad or I am angry, I'm talking to the families of the patients that have disabilities, because I have worked with many Alzheimer's patients, which is totally different. But they say that Alzheimer, it's a family disease. I think every disease is a family disease. It's not the person that is going through it that is sick. All the other people are involved. The people in the family are involved. To humanize your emotions means that mom can be sad, dad can be angry, and the child. I was listening to the presentation about communication, and I think it's very useful because if the child sees bored with emotions and he can recognize them, he can also express them. It's also very important to express emotions through its regular manifestations, like crying, for instance.
Però è questa.
And recognizing what they're feeling. It's not the easiest thing in the world. But the child is able to do that when the parents take responsibility for what they're feeling. That when they're sad, they say they're sad, because the legend goes that the parents have to be happy all the time. But we are human beings. I have 2 children myself. So if I, as a mother, as a father, can tell my son, I am sad, I am angry, I'm scared. Fear, it's another strong emotion.
Magari ci si
There's always something to do that to do with fear. Maybe you can live with your fear. I'm afraid of being on a stage and be seen by others. I keep my fear to myself and I'm still here and I live with it. I think you need to experience what you can do with your emotions. If I communicate that to my child, that becomes a communication channel, and he might say, my dad and my mom, they can be sad, they can be angry, and I can do the same thing. I do not have to turn them off.
si prendono l'emozione del genitore e dicono Dio se ne
If it happens all the time, that children take responsibility for their parents' emotions as well.
sono aperto a ascoltarti, anche se non puoi dirlo, perché nel caso ad esempio di questo tipo di patologia non cioè è difficile.
Even if you cannot say it, because for instance with this disease, it's hard to talk. I can understand what you're saying. I'm not projecting on you what I feel. I'm ready to listen. So communication is truly important. I wanted to insert this sentence from Zero Calcare is
serie, questa che è uscita da poco.
he makes animes. So it's normal to have doubts. We don't have to be whole all the time. And 2 different people that might have different appearances might have the same insecurities.
Ognuno di noi ha le sue insicurezze, le sue difficoltà.
We all have our insecurities, our difficulties. And it's not like they disappear when we turn 18 and we become adult. It's important for a parent to talk to their children, and a child must feel protected to communicate his or her emotions.
C'è una simmetria
There is a symmetry, and the parent must be a guide for the child. But to be emotionally closer to your children, especially in the case of this disease that is very complex, and for parents is difficult, it's heavy. Being parents is difficult already on its own. But when there's a disease, a super rare disease, to have to care for a child that stays a child for some aspects, and it's always dependent on their parents. So it's okay to say, I'm tired, I'm scared, I'm afraid that my other child
E da parte dei fratelli, ad esempio,
might be angry, and the brothers and sisters of the patients
c'ho paura che mamma non mi
should have the right to say that they feel not neglected, but they don't receive the same amount of attention that the other child receives. I know it's hard, and I know I have a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you.
Volevo sapere un po' voi rispetto
I wanted to ask you.
in pubblico. Volevo sapere se qualcuno ha avuto queste
I
difficoltà.
wanted to ask you if you had these difficulties, if you had this emotional difficulties. What do you think of anger? What do you think of fear?
Rompo il ghiaccio anche se non so ancora cosa dirò.
I'll break the ice, although I still don't know what I want to say, but there's a person who looked at me. We are a family of 5 people, and there are many emotions, even now.
Effettivamente ogni giorno è una battaglia dura tra
Every day it's a hard battle to feel the emotions as a parent. It's difficult. And trying to limit them, especially when it comes to fears, to give the message that the fear can have a solution. So we try to lead by example, we try to explain with words, but it's not easy to do. My insecurity is how to experience a fear within the family. Should we listen to our fears, or should we resolve our fears?
la paura, però
Because it's true, you have to live with your fear, but somehow fear must find a way out. And I also wanted to add another thing. Our children are complex. GNAO children are complex, but they do teach us to feel emotions. If there's one thing they can do, is to represent with all they have available their emotions. And this teaches us parents to do that. I learned how to cry thanks to my child, and I also learned how to smile thanks to my child. And it's something that happens within the family, but at school as well. And I apologize for being emotional, in fact.
Allora, intanto io penso che sia una cosa bellissima e credo pure io, avevo visto anche qualche video del figlio.
I had seen a few videos of Paolo Roncaglia's son.
Avevo visto, che è una cosa bellissima
And
come
I think what you said is true. It's beautiful how these children communicate with their eyes, with their whole face, and also through their body. They can communicate anger and other emotions through their body, even though sometimes they're not able to manage their body. So this is one thing that is true.
pensavo proprio, c'è un insegnamento.
And I think that they have something to teach. Often we do not verbalize things. There is a lack of of being spontaneous, and these children might make you go back to being more spontaneous. As for your question about fear, yes, it's okay to live with it, but you can also talk about it. You can talk to your husband, you can talk to your other children. It's important for children to be able to have the possibility to say that they're scared. Me as a parent, I'm scared, for instance, to drive the car, if you can communicate your fear and why you're scared, the child, on the other hand, can continue with this communication. I wanted to add one more thing. I believe that it's important to communicate emotions, to create a border with the others. If I don't communicate my emotion and I project myself on others, like my child, like what is he going to do, what is he going to say, I lose myself. And if I lose myself, I cannot give anything to the others. It's like when they give you instructions to fly, when you need to wear oxygen masks. If you don't put, you should put your oxygen mask first, and then you care for your child. So if you're not well, you cannot give much to others. But it's important to take a personal space, an internal space, where you can find yourself. To be able to give to other people. So we need to work on ourselves before we can start helping others. And I also wanted to comment a sentence that I read in the beginning. There was a drawing of a child that said his favorite song is Dove si balla. I don't know who wrote that, but I was really impressed because I think music can be a very good communication channel. Children, when they're not able to speak, when they cannot communicate what they feel, music might be a channel to resort to communicate. I think so. We really need to enhance the use of music. In fact, another child understood what was the favorite song of his classmate without the verbal communication happening there. So I think it's another important communication channel. Is there anybody else who wants to talk about prejudice on emotions?
Buongiorno, volevo ricollegarmi all'osservazione che aveva fatto Silvia.
I wanted to add on what Sylvia said about fear.
Parlare spesso con mia figlia, che è qui Maria Grazia.
I speak with my daughter Maria Grazia often, but
ad affrontare alcune emozioni.
Sometimes I do not talk about some specific emotions like fear.
Io ho tutti i simboli di Maria Grazia.
I have all the symbols of Maria Grazia. And we might start talking about fear, but the symbols that I use in front of Maria Grazia, I choose them. And I always wonder if there's something that she wants to say, but I don't insert the symbol for it. Maybe there's a doubt left for her that I wasn't able to understand. So maybe she's too confused.
Spesso no spesso, però magari capita che per fare un...
And it happens I take a lot of time before asking a question. So I wanted to have some suggestions.
Film che mi faccio, diciamo così, ecco, grazie.
Beh, magari, cioè, io non rispondo per quanto riguarda quanti
I will not answer about symbols and so on and so forth. I found out today about AAC, but as for fears, it might be interesting to see what are the symbols that you do not insert to understand yourself. So instead of talking to your daughter first, why don't you try and understand how you feel about fear? Not because it's wrong, it's very normal to be scared. Who's not scared?
in questa materia continuo a essere spaventata di molte cose. Però secondo me può essere un'occasione, no? Questa cosa che
It might be a chance.
metterà più simboli, però li metterà.
Then you might use more symbols with your child, but maybe you can use them when you are ready to see the symbols that you avoid using. I don't even know what kind of symbols we're talking about specifically, but if you remove some of them, maybe you are triggered by them. So maybe you can try and understand why they trigger you.
Un po' utile, no? In questo senso. Che ne pensa? No, perché è un raffronto, mica è una cosa dove io le parlo e le...
What do you think? It's communications.
È un esercizio.
It's an interesting exercise that I might make. I'll think about it. I'll work on myself first and then with Maria Grazia for sure.
Cioè, ogni volta che parlo con Maria Grazia,
Every time I talk to my daughter, Maria Grazia, I wonder, maybe there's something else that she wants to say, but that I'm not asking.
e ovviamente le emozioni sono, è tutta insomma una sfera molto...
This is true for every kind of question that I ask, and emotions are definitely a delicate issue. And in this specific children, emotions can be triggering,
posso dire?
can have physical consequences.
Lei, perché dico, magari c'è sempre qualcosa...
And I ask myself all these questions without asking her.
Cioè, nel senso che magari anche, tra virgolette, imboccare l'altro, no? Cioè,
But this is another issue. It's about projecting myself onto others. It's like if I feel there's a gap I have to fill. Whereas it's okay if there's a little gap between me and somebody else. If I feel guilty for something, I say, oh, there's a hole here, and I have to fill this gap because I made this hole. Maybe the hole is just there.
no, sicuramente sì, però...
But with our children, it's different. Yes, that's true, but up to a certain point.
La patologia sia complessa.
The children, although suffer from a very complex disease, and they struggle to communicate, they still communicate.
Cioè, già dargli qualcosa. Cioè,
That is already something.
per forza le andrà a dire, come tutti gli altri. Cioè, in questo è uguale a tutti gli altri bambini, non è che per forza si esprimerà. Io penso...
Your daughter does. My daughter, she's 8 years old, and every time I ask her something, she doesn't say anything. She answers with 2 or 3 words, and I can keep asking for 3 or 4 hours, asking, but she won't say anything because it's their individual space. The same that you have. You didn't say thanks to your mom or dad, and that's the same for your daughter. If she wants to say something, she'll find a way as you find a way. I know that the situation is different. I know that it's hard, but I trust these children. They're human beings like the rest of us. They're different like the rest of us. Sometimes she wants to say something, some other times she doesn't want to say something. She wants to keep it away from you. Or maybe she doesn't want to say it now and she'll find a way to express it later. So the gap doesn't need to be filled all the time. It doesn't depend on you all the time. It depends on the situation. It might depend on the other person. We all have a gap with our children and with other people.
Della dottoressa.
Grazie. Ah, non avevo visto il timer.
Va bene. Allora, con questi spunti complessi direi che possiamo chiudere la sessione.
We close the session. Thank you all for your contribution. Thank you for participating.